The film opens in 1999, Sierra Leone. In a small hut, Solomon, a fisherman, resides with his wife and their 3 children. One day, while returning to the village with his son, he spots the notorious rebel group RUF, known for terrorizing the countryside, approaching in pickup trucks. After hiding his son, Solomon rushes back to his house to rescue his wife and kids. Although he manages to get them out in time, Solomon is captured by the rebel group and is taken to work as a slave to find diamonds under the supervision of the ruthless Captain Poison. Danny, a white African who was a smuggler and mercenary, arrives in the countryside of Sierra Leone on a small private plane to negotiate with the rebels about bringing them weapons in exchange for diamonds. While attempting to cross into Liberia by posing as a writer for National Geographic magazine, Danny is caught smuggling diamonds and is arrested. In the forests of Sierra Leone, Solomon, still toiling for his oppressors, comes across a large pink diamond. As he tries to conceal it, he is discovered by Poison, who demands that he hand it over. Before he can comply, the area is raided by government troops, resulting in the capture of both Poison and Solomon. In the prison, Poison, now half blind from the explosion, spots Solomon and rallies the dozens of prisoners to seize the diamond from him, unaware that Solomon had already buried it back in the forest. Upon overhearing their exchange, Danny decides to help free Solomon in hopes of obtaining the diamond Poison was referring to. After being released from prison, Danny visits a nearby bar and coincidentally encounters Maddy, an American journalist. Despite being initially captivated by her, Danny chooses to depart upon learning that she is a journalist covering a story on blood diamonds. Despite his departure, she follows him and pleads with him to help her by providing an off-the-record story, but he refuses. After Solomon is released from prison, he goes to the nearby refugee camp in an attempt to find his family, but to no avail. Meanwhile, out in the countryside, Solomon's family, along with a small group of survivors from their village, is once again attacked by the rebel group led by the recently freed Poison. During the attack, Solomon's son, Dia, is kidnapped by the rebels. Back in town, Danny decides to fly to Cape Town to speak to meet his employer, Colonel Coetzee, who owned his own military company. Blaming him for a smuggling mission going bad, Coetzee tells him that he owes him money and to bring him the pink diamond he had heard about. Danny returns to Sierra Leone to find Solomon in hopes of getting the location of the diamond from him. Out in the rebel camps, Dia and the other kidnapped boys are being trained to be part of the group as the soldiers beat and force them to kill people. Traumatized by everything he has seen, Dia has become secluded, nothing like the happy child he once was. When Danny arrives at Sierra Leone, he tracks down Solomon, who is now working as a bellboy in a hotel, in hopes of earning enough money to save his family. Danny tries to convince Solomon to tell him about the stone by tempting him with the prospect of finding his family. As they converse, they are startled by a sudden rebel attack, sparking a devastating battle between the RUF and the government. Seeking safety, Danny and Solomon dodge the flying bullets, witnessing many being gunned down around them until they finally find a place to take cover. Waiting until it was dark, and while the rebels were celebrating with drinks, the 2 men headed out of their hiding spot and sneaked their way out of town. Walking for several hours, they joined refugees who had been relocated due to the country's unrest. When they finally get to the next village, Danny manages to locate Maddy and asks her for some help. After introducing her to Solomon, he takes her aside and asks for her help, offering proof for the story she wants to write. Pointing at Solomon, he tells her that his village was burned down by the rebels, but his family had managed to escape. Knowing she has access to UN databases, he pleads with her to find Solomon's family. Finally agreeing, Maddy makes the necessary connections, finds out that Solomon's family was located in Guinea, inside a refugee camp. On the helicopter ride to the camp, Solomon expresses his gratitude for what she has done for him. Once they arrive, Maddy provides the necessary paperwork, and they are made to wait until the guards check for the names she had provided. As they wait, Solomon searches with his eyes, hopeful that he will see his family. A few minutes later, his wife, Jessie, appears holding their 2 daughters. When she catches sight of him, she rushes over, and they hold hands over the fence, happy that they can reunite once again. Although he is happy to see his wife and daughters, Solomon looks around hoping to see his son. Suddenly, he notices Jessie's eyes tear up as she tells him the rebels have taken Dia. Hearing the terrible news, Solomon begins to scream his son's name, aggravating the guards and forcing Danny to pull him back before they shoot him. During their return to Sierra Leone, Solomon points outside the helicopter window and reveals to Danny the location of what he is seeking, inadvertently exposing Danny's true intentions for helping Solomon to Maddy. When they finally make it to the settlement, Danny tries to Solomon a map of the area and asks him to point to the exact location of where he had buried the diamond. But Solomon is adamant about not needing a map. Frustrated, Danny approaches Maddy and requests her to vouch for him as a journalist so he can access the land where Solomon had buried the diamond. When she declines to assist him, he reveals that he has evidence indicating that the major diamond companies were funding the rebels to keep the availability of the diamonds scarce by withholding them from the market. Finally, persuading her, Danny joins Maddy and the other journalists, with Solomon posing as a cameraman. While on the road, they come across an overturned ambulance and a distraught mother with her injured child. Rushing to help, Solomon grabs the child and boards a different vehicle with Maddy, Danny, and Maddy's associate after being turned away by another journalist who informed him that the bus was full. After driving for a few minutes, the group is startled when a stray bullet kills the driver, causing them to veer into a ditch. Taking control of the situation, while the journalists on the bus are massacred, Danny drives them away from the area. Although they are followed by the rebels for a while, they manage to avoid them by disappearing into the woods. As they try to traverse the thick forest, they encounter militiamen who take them. A friendly local by the name of Benjamin takes in the children who had been abused by the rebels and attempts slowly assimilate them into society. After he gives them a tour of his house and introduces them to some of the children, he offers them some refreshments. That evening, Maddy discovers Danny drinking alone on the outskirts of the camp. As they converse, Danny confides in her his desire to leave the African continent and recounts the tragic story of how his parents were murdered by rebels. Feeling sorry for him, Maddy holds his hands and they share a carrying look. The following morning, Benjamin offers to drive them to the military base they are heading to, but he is severely injured when he's shot by a RUF child soldier who refuses to let them through. Panicked by the incident, Danny threatens the kids with a gun and speeds away, rushing to get Benjamin to a doctor. After ensuring the kind man receives help, Danny converses with Coetzee, who appears pleased about the confirmation of the pink rock and reveals his involvement in the upcoming operation. Feeling uneasy about the plan, Danny bids farewell to Maddy, who had insisted on accompanying him, but he wouldn't allow it. He then instructs Solomon to meet him behind the tents and goes to gather some supplies. The two men proceed to Captain Poison's camp, where Solomon had previously concealed the pink diamond. After trekking for several hours, and with the sun on the verge of setting, they hear approaching cars from behind and take cover in the bushes. As the cars pass, Solomon believes he glimpses his son, causing him to cry out Dia's name. Despite Danny's efforts to restrain him, it's too late, and they are compelled to flee as rebel soldiers open fire on them. Despite narrowly avoiding being shot, the two men successfully flee under the cover of darkness. The next morning, Danny jolts Solomon awake and sternly warns him against endangering him in such a manner. After hours of travel, tensions rise as Danny and Solomon clash over their differing priorities. When Danny pulls out his gun, Solomon defiantly urges him to shoot, declaring that he refuses to leave without his son. Feeling sorry for the man, Danny decides to help him. Waiting until it gets dark, Danny and Solomon sneak up to the rebel camp and check if Dia is there, but they're unable to find him. Giving up, Solomon agrees to take Danny directly to the diamonds. The two spend 2 days on the road and finally make it to Poison's camp. Subsequently, Danny contacts Coetzee's camp to report that he has pinpointed the diamond's location and requests aerial support. He then assures Solomon that reinforcements will arrive in the morning before succumbing to exhaustion and waking up to find himself alone. Leaving Danny to his slumber, Solomon heads down to the camp, hoping to be hidden by the darkness and find his son. Pretending like he is part of the rebel, Solomon looks around for his son and finds him playing cards with the other boys. Slowly walking over to him, he touches him on the shoulder, but to his surprise, his son tells him he doesn't know him, shaking his hand away. Taken aback by Dia's response, he begins to tug at his shoulders, causing the young boy to become agitated and aggressive. Haunted by his experiences with the rebel group, Dia appears to have forgotten his father and ends up getting him arrested. Danny, observing the events from a concealed position behind the encampment, is distressed by Solomon's decision to strike out on his own. The next morning, Solomon is presented before Poison, who is prepared to take extreme measures to obtain the hidden diamond. Poison warns Solomon that if he fails to produce the diamond, he will locate his wife, commit unspeakable acts, and then force Solomon to witness the horrifying ordeal while he keeps his daughters for himself. Fearful for his family, Solomon picks up the shovel in front of him to show Poison where the diamond was buried, when suddenly the loud sound of helicopters approaching the area fills the air, and explosions start to erupt everywhere as rockets get launched from the chopper. Amid the chaos, Solomon seizes the opportunity to overpower the disoriented poison, and the two tumble into a ditch. Swiftly regaining his footing, Solomon utilizes the shovel he was given to fatally strike the man. Meanwhile, as the massacre unfolds, Danny locates Dia and shields him from the hail of gunfire. After the gunfire subsides, Coetzee disembarks from his helicopter to converse with Danny, who adamantly insists on an equal split of the money from the pink diamond. Refusing to entertain Danny's demands, Coetzee attempts to leverage Solomon's son as a threat to coerce Solomon into revealing the diamond's location. Aware that Coetzee intended to kill them both, Danny persuades Solomon to disclose the stone's location. As Solomon starts to dig at the spot where the stone is hidden, providing a distraction, Danny seizes the opportunity to disarm one of the soldiers and eliminate the others, including Coetzee. After neutralizing the immediate threat, Solomon persists in digging, while Danny becomes aware that he has been shot. Suddenly, he looks up to find Dia pointing a gun at him, his expression resolute. Solomon calmly addresses the frightened boy, reminding him of his family eagerly awaiting his return. Eventually, the boy calms down, lowers the gun, and allows his father to embrace him. Hearing gunfire behind them, the group begins to run to the top of the hill where a plane would arrive to take them away. Although they manage to trek up the hill, Danny is unable to continue further, realizing that he would not be able to get out alive. Returning the stone to Solomon, he gives him the number of his buyer and tells him to take care of his family. As the mercenaries arrive, Danny urges Solomon and his son to escape while he shoots down their persuaders. Leaning on the rock, Danny calls Maddy and asks her to meet Solomon in Gwyn so she can help him reunite with his family. Danny tells her that he wishes she was with him and that he was happy that he had the pleasure of meeting her before hanging up the phone. Leaning back on the rock, Danny passes away. A few days later, Maddy gets Solomon to London just as she had promised Danny, and takes pictures of him meeting Van de Kaap, the owner of the largest diamond sales company, who had been keeping his dealings of blood diamonds a secret. After Solomon meets Van de Kaap, he tells him that he would only give him the stone if he brings him his family besides the £2 million he was offering him. Several days later, Van de Kaap honors his end of the bargain, allowing Solomon to reunite with his family at last. Armed with all the evidence she needs, Maddy writes her story and exposes Van de Kaap. As the case goes to court, Solomon is called to testify and finally share his story. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.